Hey,
Hello.
everybody, and welcome to the Nonprofit Edge. If you have been here before, we are glad that you are back. If you have never been here, this live stream is all about nonprofits for you to lead, adapt, and grow. This is all about providing you tools, resources, insights, and strategies to help you navigate a very challenging and complex environment today. And we have a very special episode. This is episode 6. And it is probably one of the hottest episodes out there because we have a lot of stuff going on with AI. Big topic, hot topic. You hear about it all the time. And so we are going to talk about AI and is it hype, risk, or a game changer for nonprofits? Big topic, but there's another reason this is a big episode. Joe is on vacation, a much needed vacation. So we have a special guest host. He is John Consulting's technical lead. He's an IMIS expert, but he's also an AI specialist, enthusiast, evangelist. Andrew Tang is with us, and he's going to be filling in. And let me tell you, after you walk out of here today, you are going to know how to implement some really serious tools in AI. So, Andrew, welcome. I'm so excited you're here.
Oh, hello. Thank you for the introduction. I'm really excited to fill in for Joe today. Um,
Yeah, I wouldn't say you have big shoes to fill. Well, he's going to probably be like, yeah, you do, but you have your own special sauce here that we're going to get into. So, and I absolutely love AI. You know that. I'm an enthusiast myself. So let's talk about what some of the biggest changes are out there that you've seen recently. I think there are enormous ones. You could probably go on and on, but what are the biggest ones that are impacting the way people work today that AI
so
has caused?
definitely. So I've looked into essentially if you've seen headlines. So Claude, there's Cursor. They've actually done more experiments where instead of having people work with AI, they have these autonomous models, and those are called AI agents. I don't know if you've heard of those,
Oh,
but
yeah.
essentially they're a way of having an AI agent or like an AI employee. So, for example, Claude, they had an experiment where what they did was essentially they had a team of AIs try to create a compiler. And if you haven't heard of a compiler, it's essentially how you would translate high level like JavaScript code down to machine code. And the point of it is it's a very complicated task. And they had a team of 60 up to 100 AIs. They burned through like $50,000 of tokens. And what they came out with was a decently functioning AI compiler. So the issue with it was that it took a very long time to compile things, and it was not super efficient. However, it's a very complicated task, and the experiment showed that AIs can coordinate with each other to create larger projects, which beforehand wasn't possible. Also, another kind of development was that it's moving away from text. So how LLMs worked initially was they were based off NPL. And what NLP is natural language processing. And so they're switching from languages into more multimedia tasks, which is images or audio and video as well. Sometimes they can just have it, you can have a AI agent on your browser, and that can do different tasks for you. So it's moving away from a chatbot to something that can actually perform tasks for you independently. So those are the biggest changes I've seen so far with AI. And also how they're kind of improving AI is changing. Before, what they were doing was they were just expanding the size of the models, adding new vectors, getting bigger data centers. But now, kind of like Moore's law, if have you heard of Moore's law before?
No, this is kind of like technical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, tell me what that
Yeah.
is.
So Moore's law is kind of the idea that you have a computer and the number of transistors on it double every I think it was 12 years. But the point is that AI at this point, they're just improving it by expanding the model. But at this point, there's diminishing returns. You can only expand the model so much. So what they're doing is they're basically making better algorithms. So they're working with the space that they have better. So that's kind of the biggest shifts I've seen so far, is that they're switching from just expansion to improvement of the actual training process.
So how will that help the nonprofits out there? So that's kind of the behind the scenes technical aspects that they're improving. So how does that translate for a nonprofit's everyday workflow? How will that help them?
So I actually didn't hear the last bit of it.
And I think I have a little bit of a delay on here. How will those behind the scene changes help a nonprofit on their everyday workflow?
So I think with agentic agents, it's really helpful just to have an agent kind of take over for you and do some sort of task. And so what was happening before was that you needed a lot of prior knowledge to really work these AIs. For example, if you needed some sort of coding task or HTML task, you would really need to describe the problem to the AI properly. What I don't see with these AI agents is full autonomy. I do think that at this point, there still needs to be some level of human touch. So some human has to supervise the process. But I think with AI agents, more of that autonomy is given to the AI. And what I see that as a great benefit is that for simple coding tasks, you don't need to have a lot of prior knowledge. You can have the AI take over some parts of it. And what I see that as, I actually see that as kind of a learning experience. So you can see how the AI works. And if you're smart with it and you don't just let it run rampant, you can really learn how the AI works, how it codes, and then you can have actually snippets of HTML. I know that HTML is a big thing on for kind of that mid-level technical person. So that transition between that someone who's totally product side to someone who's pseudo technical, just to know a bit of HTML to really just update your website and do basic tasks like that. I think that these agents are really helping with that regard. I think better models are just better for everyone. So, for example, even when you're responding to an email, you're using AI to improve grammar. Better models are just going to improve everything. And what better models really translate to are more accuracy, things that sound more human. And the issue with, like, if you have hallucinations, if you've heard of that, AI hallucinations are from kind of the model not having enough space to breathe. And so, for example, how it works is if you have sort of a question, and it basically predicts the answer token by token. And so it finds the words that are most correspondent to the question itself. So, for example, I would ask, what is the most famous structure in Paris? And what it would find was, it would find that Eiffel Tower or like croissants are very tied to Paris itself. And so, for example, it would say the most famous structure in Paris would be the Eiffel Tower. And so that's how it works. And sometimes different structures, for example, like the Great Wall of China is a famous structure, and that's tied closely to the Eiffel Tower.
Andrew?
That will sometimes happen. Oh, yes. I think we're frozen. Is that true?
I think we're
Are we back?
Yes, you're back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're a little delayed, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry for the technical issues. I've been having technical issues all day. I don't know what the problem is, so I'm sorry, everybody. Maybe we'll be able to cut that part out. We'll need our amazing marketing intern, Sarah. All right, Andrew. So let's kind of move to our next question. When we talk about nonprofits, how can they easily start with very practical ways that they can use AI today? So think about simplicity for them. If they
Right.
haven't even started to dabble, maybe they're just getting into it. What's a practical way they can start? Something simple.
So how a lot of nonprofits are using AI currently are they're using it in emails and proposals and documentation. Something else that it's really useful for is looking for that needle in the haystack. So a lot of times you would have to go through a lot of documentation, a lot of meeting notes, and what you can do is you can have AI parse that and then generate some summaries for you. But what I find it really helpful for is rather than trusting those summaries directly, is to actually just find those keywords that you want. So, for example, during the meeting, I remember something happening, and I can just ask the AI to kind of point that place out so I don't have to scroll through potentially thousands of words. And that saves a lot of time. So, just these small things I think would be really good for nonprofits to start out with. Something else is I think experimentation is really important. Experimentation with AI models, that is. So different AI models have their different strength. For example, I typically use Claude for coding. I find it the best for that purpose. However, there's for image generation, there's Sora. For ChatGPT, I find it best for general purposes or just text generation. For speed, a lot of times you just have simple queries. You don't want it to buffer forever. I know that GPT has a lot of users and their models are a little slower than the rest. So I find that DeepSeek is the best for speed. And what DeepSeek actually did to improve its speed was when you're actually typing in the question, it actually seeds that to the AI. So while you're typing, the AI actually does some reading there. So when you click enter, it actually has some of that original context. So that's why the responses are so fast. Also, something that I really like AI for is experimentation and just different ideas that I have. And what that really translates to is the idea that before, if I had an idea, example like coding or writing some article, maybe I would spend like 10 seconds just thinking about it, but I don't want to spend that much time actually fleshing it out and going through all the details. But I think AI really helps me really just get started with generating a template. So I can just test this idea out. I can throw it away later and I don't have to invest that time. But what happens is that when I do have that draft started, it allows me to kind of flesh out an idea of, almost fully. And then I can have a path I can go down easily. And that's the path that I selected based off the AI's work originally.
So this is a real time saver for you, which kind of feeds really well into my next question, because one of the biggest benefits of AI is to save time. And that's something staff always wants to do. If they can save time, but still put out good quality work, right? That's a good advantage. So can you give an example? I mean, you kind of gave an example there, but where a nonprofit, like give an example of where they could specifically use AI to save time. And maybe have you worked with an AI with nonprofits where you can say, implement this to save time? Can you share an example?
Yeah, of course. So what I find really helpful with AI, and I think a lot of people do, is it really eliminates writer's block. So writer's block is the idea that you're staring at a blank page, you don't know where to start. AI really breaks that down. So even if you don't use the AI response itself, just having some starting point, some seed to begin really helps you really get initiated. And I see that as a really underrated aspect of how AI can save staff time. So for example, if I'm looking at an email, I don't know what the best response is. I don't know how to respond. Maybe it's something tricky. Maybe it's someone's upset and you don't know how to approach that. What I find, if you just throw into an AI system, it'll give kind of a set of responses that you can start off. And I really find that to be helpful. So even if I don't end up using the AI's responses directly, it gives me some ideas to get started, and it kind of stops that writer's block from happening initially.
So it's really kind of like a little bit of brainstorming
Yeah,
with
definitely.
the, yeah, it just jumpstart the creativity for me. Give me some ideas. And even if you don't use the ideas, it can help you spark some ideas inside your brain. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
I do have a
So
story I'd like to share too.
yeah, go ahead,
With,
please.
so for TIA, I know you had talked to Paul, I believe, last stream, right? So from
Yeah.
TIA, Transportation Intermediaries Association. And I was working on a bridge with them from Absorb, which is a learning management system. And I wanted to connect it to their IMIS system. And a big thing with that is SSO. And SSO simply is just single sign on. You basically log into IMIS. You don't have to log into Absorb. And to get that set up, it was a little tricky because the issue was that the two sides didn't really talk to each other. So one was using SAML OpenID. The other IMIS was just using OpenID Connect. So those are two different systems. And the long and short of it is that there was kind of two routes I could go through. I could go through kind of changing the OpenID to work between the two. So those were the kind of the same protocols, but they had functional differences. So that was what I was leaning towards initially. But the other one was just straight up having this intermediary connection where I transformed the response to SAML. Um, and I initially wanted to go through that protocol change, but after doing some test scripts with AI, just because I wouldn't have initially invested that much time in doing these scripts initially if I didn't have AI, because the time investment would have been like 5 to 10 hours to write these scripts just to test something out. But when I actually generated these scripts for feasibility, what happened was that I found that one option was significantly easier and more consistent and less prone to error. So that's the path I went through. So if I didn't have AI, the quality of the work would have greatly been diminished because I would have went through the kind of the easier path, but that path had a lot of issues with it. So what I see beneficial with AI is that it can really help you get started on big ideas and have something to present to you. And so you can kind of think through your thoughts better. And I think that saves a lot of time in the long run because you have more capacity to kind of plan out your thoughts with AI because you're not really investing that time. So it minimizes that time investment at the start for you for the exploration phase.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that I'm actually including in newsletters is, nonprofits are coming out and saying, we really feel there's a lot of noise out there about AI, but we don't necessarily think we're seeing results that we should without, with all the noise. So is it really a game changer for us? And maybe that's because they're not using it at the level that they could be. They're not maximizing it. So what do you think they're doing wrong to not get what it could be a game changer? And it seems like they're thinking it's more hype, which is kind of what this title was about. Are they just not getting what they should be? So what are they maybe not doing what they should be to get all the stuff that they could?
Right. So something about or AI currently, how it's implemented is LLMs, and LLMs are prone to error. They're probabilistic in the sense that when you push an input into it, it generates a random output. So the output does make sense, but the output is different every single time you generate. So if you go to AI or ChatGPT, you put in something, it generates one output, and then you put in the same thing again, and it generates a different output. So that's what I call probabilistic. And a lot of tasks that people are trying to give AI are really deterministic tasks. For example, if I need to sort a list of donors, or if I need to parse through for certain characters or do scoring. something like that is completely deterministic. And what happens is that people are trying to give AI a probabilistic model, something that's deterministic. It doesn't really work out. So if I give it a list and I have kind of a mathematical function to score each of the rows, it'll produce results that are likely correct in some places, but incorrect in other places. And I think that's the source of some of the frustration, is that people are expecting it to work like how a calculator works. But what you can do to get around that, I've seen, was some of the prompts that you need to do are one, if you haven't tried this already, if you need it to sort a list or do some sort of data manipulation, you should ask it not to directly do it, but to write some sort of script to do it. So it could be ask it to write a Node script or a Python script, but you don't really need to really know how the script works just to test it out. That's something you can do. So you're converting something that's probabilistic to something that's deterministic. Something else is always ask it for sources. What I've seen too often is people ask a very specific question to an AI. For example, on this software, does it do this specific thing? And the answer is probably going to be not correct, because again, with that hallucination, it likes to give you an answer. It doesn't like to say to you, I don't know. But a lot of AIs like ChatGPT and Claude are come inbuilt with the capability to search the internet. So you should always ask it to reference a source. And if it does give you information, ask where the source was from to give you a link and to give you the exact quote that it found. So those are the biggest things I do see. Also, generating content. A lot of people nowadays do see AI content, and they can recognize AI content. Something that I don't like a lot of times is you have a lot of emojis everywhere in generated text. That is a red flag for this being generated. Something else that I'm not really a fan of is that people nowadays don't put M dashes in their work, because AI tends to put a lot of M dashes everywhere. And M dashes are just those very long horizontal lines. And people tend nowadays to avoid putting M dashes, but I also do avoid putting M dashes in my work, just because people get the wrong impression. Also, AI images. There's pretty good models like Sora that do pretty good with AI images, but what I see a lot with AI images is that they tend to look cheap. So for images itself, I would try to get some sourcing. So if you have like a small image, I think using AI is fine. But if it's a large banner or something like a title for an article, like right next to it, I would try to just use actual images or stock images, just to avoid it looking kind of cheap.
Right. So there's my advice, because our John Consulting newsletter is going out this month, and I used 2 AI images. And I
mean,
think
it's okay.
Andrew's telling me to take those off.
I mean, they're okay as long as they don't look AI. And what I mean by looking AI is like the high, you can see if it's high exposure. But it depends on the size of it. So if it's small enough, I think it's fine. I think Sora is really good nowadays. A lot of AI image generators are really good, but it's just having the abundance of them. And if they look like they're very overexposed, that is a red flag. So the thing with like people do like quality. So when they do see a lot of things that are very AI, they kind of tend to have that as a red flag. But it's a balance. It's a balance between what you can do to get images versus the quality that you produce.
So let's talk about the future of AI. I mean, it's moving like lightning speed. So tomorrow will be something huge. So the future is like tomorrow. But let's talk about 2 to 3 years from now. I mean, you may not be able to predict it because it could be even bigger, but for a nonprofit, how should they start preparing? In your opinion, where could we really be? I mean, a nonprofit probably needs to start now putting a plan together.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think they should start doing?
So a lot of people or a lot of nonprofits are using AI currently. So numbers online say between 80 to 90% of organizations use some sort of AI. But that AI usage mostly comes down to individual employees using ChatGPT for emails or for administrative tasks on the back end. So the issue is that even though 90% of organizations use AI or nonprofits use AI, the issue is only 10% or less of those nonprofits actually have some sort of game plan with AI. And a lot of the times it's just individuals using it, and then there's no bigger framework, there's no bigger direction. And so you have individuals using AI possibly ineffectively. And I think the biggest thing is that right now, what you need to focus on is for organizations to have a plan. So you can't have some organization just completely ban AI because people are going to use it and people should use AI. But you can't also just have AI be like the Wild West where there's no framework on the appropriate use of AI. And a big thing is with nonprofits is data security. So when you're responding to emails, it's important to make sure that whatever you're putting into the third-party tool, you're not putting PII in. Something else is not to rely on it for very, very minute tasks. So if it's just a small thing, you should just do that yourself. Something else is accuracy. You have to check accuracy every single time that AI generates something. So I think companies right now, instead of focusing on what AI will be like in the future, is just because AI is already very good. It's just to focus on how they're using AI now and policies around AI should be implemented. To put in like expectations on how employees should use AI, how they would use AI in the future to improve what they're working on right now. So setting guidelines, I think, is very important, and having kind of an outlook as an organization for AI in the future is good as well.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely fabulous advice. There's so much to learn, so many things that'll be coming out in the future. So great information. Wonderful. So any final thoughts for nonprofits out there? What are their next steps? You gave so much great information in the last, 30 minutes. What would you say is like one thing they could walk away with right now that they could, implement? What can they do?
I think what's really important is to really just talk to your employees about AI. And at John Consulting, we've been doing that. So we're making kind of an AI policy where we're setting expectations on where to use AI when it's appropriate, not to rely on it completely as a crutch, but to use it to improve the quality of your work. So I think policy is something that you should invest in. So that's something that you should start doing, talking with your employees. How are they using AI? When are they using AI in an appropriate setting? Are they using AI effectively? You should invest in different AI models so they can really test out what they like. AI models aren't horribly expensive. They're between $10 to $20. It's a big difference between the free plan and the paid plan too. The free version of GitHub Copilot is pretty terrible, but the paid plan, which is only $10 a month, is extraordinarily fantastic. And so you have a lot of employees, what I see, they're just using the free version of ChatGPT to help with their emails. And then they do other tasks, they find, oh, it's not great at everything. But if an organization sits down, they really get their plan sorted out. They talk with individuals. For example, if someone really wants AI for generation of images, they should invest in some Sora subscription and maybe maybe just a general ChatGPT subscription as well, just so employees can test out what they like to use. And I think right now it's organizations need to help their employees use AI properly. I think that's the biggest thing, and to really invest in it.
Absolutely. And embrace it and make them feel like they're part of the conversation and aren't going to be replaced, right? It's got to be a cultural thing where everybody is has a seat at the table with this. So great advice. Well, thank you for being our guest host. I think Joe will be thrilled that you brought some great perspective to the table, and we're shaking things up a little bit this week. So we're going to close episode 6. I can't believe it, but definitely you're going to love the next episode, because we're going to have a panel of some of our best Generation Z, employees who are going to be bringing a different perspective about what the future of nonprofits look like for the younger generation, who could be your potential members, what they are going to need. So join us soon. You'll be getting more information about that. We want to say thank you for tuning in today. And if you need any assistance in technology, growth strategy, John Consulting has free strategy meetings complimentary for you. So please reach out to johnconsulting.net. And we also have a click tracker demo and free video that you can watch to get all the details. So you can go on johnconsulting.net for that as well. So we got a lot of exciting things going on. Thanks so much for coming in, and please take some of these tips, resources, tools with you, and we will see you soon for more of this to help you navigate the complexity and the challenges in the nonprofit industry. We're so happy you joined us. Thank you so much, Andrew. Awesome job.
Oh, thank you. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody. All right.